KWT slaying.
Greetings, Israel. This is another teaching by Teotw Ministries. The title of this teaching is Ancient World, Addendum, Archaeological Discoveries of the Past. So, Minister Yacoba has been doing a series on the ancient world, and part of his teaching covered the giants. So, I just want to provide some additional evidence on the existence of those giants, and that the idea of the Setite theory is done away with once you understand what's really going on in this world, what has been discovered. And evidence I have is minuscule. The evidence is really overwhelming as to the archaeological discoveries, the ancient writings, things like that, right? So let's continue. So we have this news article. Now let me explain this. Worldwide, throughout the centuries, there have been discoveries of giant skeletons. Okay, this is not unique to the United States, the Americas, or whatever, right? Worldwide, throughout the history of mankind, there have been discoveries of giant skeletons. Okay, people have unearthed them while digging or while planting, while clearing land, and they discover burial mounds with giants. Okay, some of them, they may not be too tall, but they have strange features, right? So they have these unhuman-like features, characteristics that's not common in mankind that exists today. So there's a whole race of people that really look different than modern man. But many of those people were also a lot larger, a lot bigger, a lot taller than modern man. So we have here Wisconsin mound open. Skeleton found of a man over 9 feet high with an enormous skull. Maple Creek, Wisconsin, December the 19th. This is a New York Times article, December 20th, 1897. One of the 3 recently discovered mounds in this town has been opened. In it was found skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was as large as a half bushel measure. Some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones. The mound from which these relics were taken is 10 feet high and 30 feet long, and varies from 6 to 8 feet in width. The 2 mounds of lesser size will be excavated soon. Okay, so there's many burial mounds worldwide that were apparently tombs, right, for these giants, for these other races. And this is what mankind, modern man, has been discovering over the years. Now, it's well documented that people turned these discoveries over to the Smithsonian Institute, a Rothschilds and Rockefeller funded organization, and the evidence of the giants disappeared. Okay, they're still in the Smithsonian, but they're not released for public consumption or viewing. Giant skeleton found. Okay, Evening Star, April 3rd, 1914. Two other credited to prehistoric time unearthed in Ireland. London, April 3rd. According to a dispatch published here today, the skeleton of a person who had been apparently 10 feet in height has been found at Dysart, County Louth, Ireland. The skeleton was unearthed together with that of two others supposed to have been buried in prehistoric times. The three bodies had been interred in separate graves, all encased with stones. The skull of the giant measured 18 inches from the crown of the head to the chin. So you had a race of giants that lived in the earth, right? Which lines up with the scriptures, which lines up with Genesis 6:4, right? This gives credence to the idea that Goliath really did exist. King Og of Bashan really did exist. And don't forget, have you ever seen a 7-foot man? And have you seen how tall he is? What about 9 feet and 10 feet? The Coconino Sun, July 11, 1919. A giant skeleton, 18 feet tall, Austin, Texas, June 14th. If the report that the fossilized skeleton of the giant 18 feet tall has been found near Seymour, Texas is true, it is the most important ethological discovery ever made in the world, remarked Dr. J.E. Pierce, professor of anthropology of the University of Texas. It would break all previous records of giants by nearly 10 feet, as the tallest man known to anthropological research was only 8 feet 5 inches in height. The skeleton is in possession of W.J. McKinney, Houston, Texas oil prospector, who found it, and has been seen by a number of people who vouch for the truth of the size of the relic of a heretofore unknown race. Mr. McKinney, while making an excavation on the narrow watershed between the Brazos and Wichita rivers, came upon the fossilized skeleton near the surface. Mr. Kinney writes, I estimate that this man weighed from 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. According to my deduction, he lived about 2,800 years ago. The skull is 6 times the size of that of an ordinary man. Mr. McKinney does not explain how he arrived at the figures as to the probable period of the existence of this remarkable man. It is probable that the bones of the giant will be donated to the Smithsonian Institute, which under the direction of Dr. J. Walter Fuchs is now conducting anthropological research work in Texas. So as you dig into this, I mean, my brother and I have been studying this for maybe 20 years already. But when you dig into this, you'll find a lot of articles, and many of the people donated it to the Smithsonian, thinking, I guess, that it's going to be, a public display for the masses and put on display, which would reaffirm the Bible. Okay, but the powers that be do not want the Bible reaffirmed. Okay, so the Smithsonian has hidden this evidence, but history has well documented these incidents. So those who tell you the Bible wasn't talking about giants, obviously they're lying. Now the question is, who are those giants, and where do they come from? Well, according to the scriptures and according to the book of Enoch, fallen angels slept with human women. Okay, and when you see the pictures I have, you'll see why that makes sense. Okay. So here we go. You see these pictures. This is in Paracas, and there have been discoveries in other places. Okay. So there's a archaeologist who has been following this for a long time. His name is Brian Forrester. So if you're interested in learning more about these skulls, I would recommend that you search for him on YouTube and Facebook. He travels the world. He does a lot of research concerning these skulls. But if you notice, look at the eye sockets, right? They're huge. They're not like normal man. Okay. The brain, the cranium is huge compared to normal man. Okay. Look at this guy right here. Okay. The mass of his cranium is different than any kind of normal human being. Is the space is huge. It takes up a lot of space. The size and thickness of his cranium is immense. Now, some people, right, especially those who like to lie, like those urban apologist people, right, they'll lie and tell you, oh, this is head binding. But you can look at these skulls. Look at this one here. Right? You don't get this massive growth of skull from head binding. Okay? This is a full growth of his cranium, right? His entire skeletal structure here is different than modern man. It's huge. You can't do this by head binding. Okay? This is all bone. Now, I'll show you what head binding looks like and you'll see the difference. But check this out. Okay, the shape of the skull doesn't even look human. It looks animal. Okay, these were humanoid creatures. Now, this does not line up with modern man. This does not line up with the skeletal structure, right, or the skull of a modern man. As I said before, the cranium is huge. It's massive, right? What kind of body had to hold up this head? Okay, this particular head right here probably was at least, this guy who carried this head was probably at least 8 feet tall minimum. But look at the shape of his skull. Look at his jawbone, right? It's not even like a human. Okay, they're humanoid. Where did they come from? Okay, if there's no such thing as giants, right? The people who want to discredit the Bible or want to fictionalize the Bible or make it symbolic, how do you explain this, right? Hard evidence. Once again, huge eye sockets, huge, massive jawbone. Look, huge, massive jawbone structure, huge cranium, huge head. Okay, this is what is around the world. These people existed, and where did they come from? They're not like normal humans. These are the people who are the demons, the disembodied demons or spirits that roam the earth, according to scripture. These are the people who had no place to go when they died. They had no place to go when they died, so they possess people. Okay, and this is why when Jesus cast out the demoniac, right, cast those demons out of that man, right, the legion. Where did those demons come from? Some people think that fallen angels are demons. Fallen angels are not demons. Fallen angels don't need to possess bodies, right? They're already spiritual and they already can take on human form. So who are they, right? The ones who have to take over human bodies are the ones who have lost their body. It's the people like this who have died over the years, who roam the earth because they cannot rest in God's kingdom. They're not descendants of Adam. They are descendants of the fallen. So these are the origins of the fallen angels. I'm sorry. These are the origins of the demons that you read about in the Bible. So look at this. I mean, some of these look like comic books, right? These little weird demonic looking skulls, right? I mean, they're not natural. Now, these aren't, belong to, giants in this case, but these are the ones that look like aliens. And these are the creatures that roam the earth because of the acts of the fallen angels, according to Genesis 6:4, right? And Enoch. Some of them take on small size. Some of them are miniature and look like demons, right? So this is head binding, okay? Now the skulls I showed you is not head binding. Head binding, right? These people have head binding as a tradition in their culture because they followed the fallen ones. They followed the descendants of the fallen angels and they worship them. And so they wanted to be like them. So they would bind their heads as a baby to try to mimic the gods that they worship, which were the Nephilim, the children of the fallen. Okay, so you see, this is head binding, where they bind it up, they tie it up, and as you grow, you know, your minuscule skull grows up and out, because it can't grow outward, right? It can't grow outward in width. It can grow up because it's bound, just like that little baby on the right side is bound, and so his skull is going to grow up. That's head binding. Okay, the cranium mass is proportional to any human. It's just they made their head pointy. The skulls I showed you, all right, the skulls I showed you were massive, huge cranium, huge mass, thick bone structure, right? These guys, their bone structure is no different than the rest of their face. Okay, but the skull of those giants, or those Nephilim creatures, were massive. The thickness of the bone structure, the thickness of the jawline is not human. It's humanoid. Half angel, half human. So once again, you have different versions of this skull. So don't let people tell you that this is a one-off, that this is some strange genetic alteration. No, this was a race of beings that roam the earth, and their skeletons still exist. Once again, look at this guy here. This massive, massive cranium. Look at his jawline. Look at his face. This is not your normal human, right? He's humanoid. This guy is a human. He tried to mimic these people that his race saw as a god. So they imitated them by binding their head, right? And just like you see, I think, is it Cleopatra, the statue of Cleopatra in Egypt? She has a huge cranium. That's from these people, a mixed breed of fallen angel and human. So this is a little child, and obviously you could say, you know, he has a sickness, but he has, he probably wasn't sick. He's a half breed, right? Half fallen angel, half human, big eye sockets. Now this one here, okay, I can't even tell you what that is, right? But people lived in different times. These are the creatures that spawned from the mating of the fallen with other species, with humans, right? So this guy looks like your typical alien in an Alien movie, right? This looked like the creature in what's that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? When he fights the aliens. Okay, that's what these look like, right? Massive. Look at this huge, massive cranium, right? Don't tell me this is head binding. No one's that dumb. Okay, so here's an example of Cleopatra or Nefertiti. I don't know which one it is. All right, she was a Nephilim. Okay, so even more so, we have well, let me play this video for you from Brian Forrester, and you could get a little more information here.
Paracas History Museum in Paracas, Peru. And some of you have asked about the DNA results and the DNA testing that we've done, and so I'm going to give you some of the details. So as we look at this one, this baby here that died at 18 to 22 months, all Native American DNA, people who are 100% Native American, should have maternal haplogroups of A, B, C, or D. However, when we did DNA testing of this one on the right, the results turned out to be U2E1, which is most commonly found in the Black Sea area of, or Crimea area of the Black Sea. And then this one, the maternal DNA, U2E. which again is most commonly found in the Black Sea area, more specifically Crimea. And then this one in the middle, these three were found in the same tomb. This one turned out results from two labs, H1 and H. Again, most commonly found in the Black Sea area, or generally Eurasia. And then this one here, you see the natural red hair. It's thinner than Native American hair and it's wavy, so those are characteristics that are not typically Native American. The haplogroup on the maternal side, H2A, which again is Eurasian. So this is the mystery of the elongated skulls of Paracas in Peru that basically no academics are studying. I seem to be the only one, and you, the general public, who are interested in the study of these ancient people who lived between 3,000 and 2,000 years ago. What we now know is that they, A, were not originally of Native American ancestry, but are closely tied with the other largest elongated skulls in the world, which are found in the Crimea area and the Black Sea. And also, they existed between 3,000 and 2,000 years ago. They were likely wiped out by the so-called Nazca culture. And other anomalies are like this. You see where this plastic bottle top is entering the skull? That's called the Foramen Magnum. That's where your spinal column enters your skull, and it's a full 1 inch back from where it should be. Ours is more at the balance point here. This is 1 inch back, and that by itself tells you that this is not a Homo sapiens sapiens, more likely that the original Paracas were Homo sapiens Paracas, so a subspecies of human being. And here we have an example of where brain surgery was performed, here, and you see that the skull has healed. So 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, these people on the coast of Peru were performing brain surgery, and recovery of months or years was 50% or better. We also find other shapes here, like this shape, which is more like some would say a Akhenaten of ancient Egypt shape, more of a swept back. And then we have the classic cone head.
So as you can see, the world is different than what they like to tell you, and that the Bible is actually true. Okay, and the urban apologetics people, they wouldn't support this. You can't mess up their normal way of thinking, their safe little world. They claim to believe the Bible, but those kind of people wouldn't even believe the evidence, just like they don't believe the evidence of who the biblical Hebrews are, although it's well documented. Okay? So I just wanted to close off the ancient civilization series, right? The ancient world series that Jacoba did, with this little evidence, this visual evidence of giants. If you like what we do, please support us at patreon.com/TEOTW. Peace and blessing, Israel. Your captivity is ending.